What is going on, guys? It's the Variety Film Brothers. I'm Andrew.
I'm Thomas.
Welcome back to Variety Discussion, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about Power Rangers Samurai Clash of the Red Rangers. Now, there aren't very many Power Rangers movies, so I kind of had to sort of shove this one in the lineup, even though most people probably wouldn't consider it one of the mainline Power Rangers movies. You know, it's about 45 minutes long. It's a TV movie. It's not very good.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I thought it was okay. Just, honestly, I didn't find this a painful experience. It was just kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the dialogue was kind of bad, but, that's with all Power Rangers.
I mean, that's basically true. Like, Power Rangers has never had great dialogue. I would argue some seasons are, okay, tolerable, but, there have not been any, great philosophical quotes to come from Power Rangers, and I don't think that's surprising anybody.
Yeah.
But getting right into our scores, Thomas, what did you score this movie, air quotes movie?
I'm going to give it a 70.
Really?
I'm going to give it a 70.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 61.
Yeah.
So, we're both pretty close there. I actually thought you were going to be more harsh on it than I was, but Power Rangers Samurai is a season we've both seen. I've seen all of RPM. I don't think you've finished RPM?
I have not finished RPM.
Just the first couple episodes, I think.
Yeah.
So RPM is my favorite Power Rangers season of all time. That's kind of a controversial opinion, but I just think the acting was the best, the story was the best, but that's just me. I think Samurai is kind of bad.
Yeah.
So this movie really just felt like a really long episode of Power Rangers Samurai. To some, that would probably be a good thing. For me, I don't think it's so great. Samurai suffers from this problem of just not really having a very complex story or, complex characters at all. RPM really went, I don't want to say too deep, but definitely deep for Power Rangers standards into their story and characters and stuff. And unfortunately, it does not carry over into this movie at all. Starting off, first scene of the movie, we have a duel, if you can call it a duel. It's more of a Western,
standoff.
Yeah, standoff kind of thing. And, which would be fine, but, why has Scott, the Red RPM Ranger, agreed to this? Just shoot him. I feel like that was an idea that Professor Cog, great name by the way, totally no way you can make a very easy joke on that one.
Yeah.
But, I feel like he, brought that up and was just yeah, there's no way I can actually win this. What if we do this in a very contrived, stupid way? And then Scott, for some reason, agreed.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can see that going. But just one minor thing that really bothers me about that intro scene is when we get the, shot inside the cockpit of the Megazord. We see Scott, and obviously we can't show the rest of his team because budget, and I'll get more into that later. But what bothers me is if they didn't want to reuse any footage from the season before, showing the inside of the cockpit, why not just make a really, cheap, quick set for Scott to just sit in for, 30 seconds and record the, 3 shots they need? Because, the shot that we see of him in the Megazord, it's got, a brown background and it's all hazy. Thomas, you literally asked, is this a dream?
Yeah, I did.
And I can't blame you at all. And, I would have been super confused. See, me, I've seen the original movie, the Japanese movie that this gets most of the footage from. So, I knew, pretty much what was going on from that. So, basically, I had to watch another movie to know what was going on in this movie. But no, I completely understand your confusion. Just a really bad set decision. I don't know. Really, you could have just filmed it in front of, a white or black background.
Yeah.
And it would have been less confusing. But yeah, really, that whole scene in the intro, I think, could have just been silent. My second note here is literally just bad dialogue.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. Writing is hard. It takes really good writers to write good dialogue. That's fine. But, in my opinion, if you know dialogue isn't really the strong suit here, just don't say anything. Do you think that would have actually made the scene less confusing?
If there was no dialogue in it?
Yeah.
Probably less confusing, yeah.
Not by a whole lot,
Not
but
by a whole lot,
but some. You would kind of get what was going on a
Yeah.
on a very basic level. But again, you get that cockpit Megazord shot that looks like it's in the middle of some desert fever dream.
Yeah.
And everything just gets thrown off. So Scott loses the battle. I know it's a budget thing that we don't get to see the rest of his team, but they're supposed to be in the Megazord, and they don't say anything about that. So like again, just bad writing, like cutting corners here, because like I feel like it'd be reasonable for the viewer, even if they're a kid, to ask like what happened to the other Rangers in there, but maybe
They all died.
I mean, like, what else are the kids supposed to think? Honestly, like, but Scott loses the fight because Professor Cog cheats or whatever. It's going to be so hard to not make fun of his name.
Yeah,
It's such low hanging fruit. It's so hard to not just grab it.
Yeah.
But so one way or another, Professor Cog ends up in the Samurai Rangers dimension or whatever, and so we cut to this villain who is just absolutely massacring thousands of people.
Oh yeah.
Like this is like this is exceeding like terrorist attack numbers. Dude, we've got at least 4 buildings in a span of 30 seconds just exploding. Do we see like any ambulance or like fire trucks, anything? Yeah, the SWAT team, somebody like, and I know this happens a lot in Power Rangers. You know, a lot of buildings explode and things like that. But like, I just feel like it would be a little more believable if we could at least address it, even just a little bit.
Yeah.
And like, it kind of makes the Samurai Rangers seem just really crappy because like they're here, they're on the scene, but like a bunch of people are dying anyway, and they're not really making an effort to save anybody. Like, dude, we've got, like I said, at least 4 buildings completely exploded.
Oh yeah.
Like, so many deaths,
Yep.
and they don't even like talk about it. Again, I know I'm going into details that don't matter here. I know this happens a lot in Power Rangers. I think we can agree that this went a little overboard.
Yeah.
There really doesn't seem to be much urgency from the Samurai Rangers at all. Like, which again doesn't really make them look too great. Like, I feel like they should be at least worried about the people.
At least freaking out, yeah.
A little bit,
just
like,
oh. But they're just like, well, we'll just wait for him to get back down.
yeah, like, just wait a minute. He'll get back down here eventually. So the Samurai Rangers are doing their thing mediocrely, I should say.
Yeah.
And that's when the grinders, the mechanical grunts from Scott's season, from the RPM season, show up. And this is where things start to get a little bit weird. So the Samurai Rangers' swords are apparently just completely useless, even though, mind you, they're extremely sharp.
Yep.
And for some reason, Scott's sword, the one that's a frickin' barrel, can only do damage to them. Like, I'm assuming they're both made of metal, right? So, like, one shouldn't necessarily be that much more effective than the other, but, like, surely the sharper one would.
Yeah, surely. No.
Like, I mean, that's just how, like physics work. If
Logic.
you can, like, logic, yeah, so... So Scott comes in, and I'm just going to go on and get this out of the way. So, Scott's actor, Ika Darville, was a fantastic addition to the RPM cast. He's actually, in my opinion, a really good actor, and that's why he's gotten more work since Power Rangers. He was in Jessica Jones. Technically, he's in the MCU, which is pretty cool. Not the Red Ranger, but, you know,
Darn.
close enough. But, so it's very apparent they could not bring him back. And he has specifically said that they just could not afford him. And he's even credited under a different name. And it's like, it's such a shame, dude. I feel like they couldn't have cut corners from somewhere else to just, like, you know, bring in one of the main characters of your movie here. Isn't that kind of a necessity?
Yeah.
Like, they come up with this really dumb excuse of, like, well, we don't know if Scott can breathe the air here because the air in his dimension is different. And it's like, back in his dimension, like, his Earth is very polluted. You remember the main plot of RPM, right? Like, the whole world has basically kind of been destroyed. It's an apocalypse. There's one city left that actually has clean air and everything. So, like, in RPM, they actually go outside of that city and breathe in the, like, quote-unquote toxic air. And they're fine. Like, yeah, like, they're totally fine. So, like, apparently, that is a really good scene, though. But so apparently, like, when he's arrived in this dimension that has even cleaner air,
He can't breathe.
He can't breathe it. Like, in one of the earlier Power Rangers crossovers, they literally went on the moon with no, like, suits or helmets or anything.
That might be a problem.
So, like, I really think it would be a bad idea to, like, try to find consistency and accuracy in Power Rangers in this instance. But, like, besides it being just a bad excuse, it really keeps you from, like, like, if you don't know Scott very well, you don't learn anything from him in this movie.
Yeah.
And you even said at the very end, like, he doesn't become attached to any of these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has that little moment with Mike at the very end, the Green Ranger, and, you know, he's all like, yeah, you know, Emily really likes you. And...
She doesn't.
but, like, it doesn't hit, because, like, you know, there's just not any character bonding dynamics there.
When did Mike and him ever talk in them?
Yeah, exactly. I think that was literally the first conversation they ever had. Like, so it's a shame, because again, I think Ika Darville is a really good actor, and could have brought a lot more to his, you know, appearance here, had he actually been able to, like, be on set and talk to these people, instead of just be in a booth and record his lines after the fact.
Yeah.
Another thing that is also really weird to me is that Antonio's actor, I don't know the name, I could look it up if I wanted to, but I just don't feel like it. They didn't bring him back for this movie either, which would be fine. Honestly, I probably wouldn't even have noticed, like, if they just kept it, like, to the voice scenes, you know, like, just for the suit scenes. But, like, they have this scene where he's fishing, you know, like his character does, and that's great, but, like, they have to keep the shots, like, from showing his face. And it's just super glaringly obvious. Like, maybe not to the little kids, but, like, I'm just thinking, wouldn't it have been easier to just not shoot that scene? You know what I mean? Like, because that's just going to make it more obvious.
Yeah.
But, like, again, whatever. It doesn't really, like, have much bearing on the movie. It's just, like, you're really not patching up your holes very well here, in my opinion. You're letting your, you know, micro-budget show. And again, like, micro-budgets are fine, you know, if you know how to use them. And that's something I usually like about Power Rangers, is that when it's okay at using its budget, I can appreciate it. But, like...
They do not do well in this one.
No, and it's funny, because it would have cost them less money to just not shoot that scene. And it would have been less noticeable.
Yeah.
But that's... I don't know. It's whatever.
Yeah. I think it's like... I think you need the right actors first, and then you can worry about the setting later.
Yeah.
Like, you need the good basics first, in my opinion, to even, like, be close to, like, getting a good score on this movie. But that's just my opinion. You can blow thousands of dollars on empty sets. You know, who cares?
Sure,
Who
why
cares?
not? But something that also really doesn't help this movie, I think, is, like I mentioned before, we don't see Scott's team in this movie. We don't see the RPM team, which really sucks, because they're, you know, basically my favorite team in all of Power Rangers, and, like, I understand you don't want to pay all of them to come back, but, like, honestly, if you're just gonna keep them in the suits anyway, like, just bring back different voice actors. Like, you think the kids would have really noticed? Like,
No.
And it's, like, yeah, not at all. And it sucks, because we could have gotten a really nice, you know, like, team-up fight at the end there. Instead, they take the third act from a completely different movie from the source material and, like, shove that at the very end. And that's what causes, I think, this really weird, like, lack of plot consistency in this movie. It's just, like, 1 minute we're focused on Scott and Jaden, and then sometimes we're, like, seeing bits and pieces of this army they're putting together for whatever reason, even though they don't have an actual plan, I don't think. Like, they don't have, like, any sort of, like, takeover plan. It's just like, hey, we've got a lot of Moogers, and they're all in the same area. And it's like, okay, are you gonna, like, do anything with it?
I don't know. I haven't read that far in the script yet.
But speaking of Scott and Jaden, their little plan that they have, so they've been shot with these bolts that are supposed to, like, heighten their anger or whatever, or, like, make them angry or something. You're looking very confused right now. Do you remember this, like, at all?
Was this in that 10-second scene whenever the Masters shot them with something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, like, unbeknownst to Professor Cog, God, it's just such a bad name, Mentor G has, like, cured the symptoms of the bullets they were shot with. This is all very poorly explained, by the way. Very, very rushed. And so Jaden and Scott decide they're going to go back to Professor Cog, with them still thinking they're, you know, real mad at each other, or whatever. And really, like, it's just... They have a plan, but it's not an actual plan. Because they're, like, pretending to fight, and that's all good and all. You know, we get this Red Ranger 1v1 that's that is conceptually a cool idea, but like they don't use that window of opportunity to actually execute a plan.
Yeah.
You know, like they've literally got everybody distracted. You know, like Scott has a gun, you know, Jaden has a sword that he is willing to throw and kick, apparently. So like, why not shoot Professor Cog or throw your sword at him while he's distracted?
Yeah.
It's really that simple to me. Like you said when we were watching the movie, they only destroy, like, maybe 10 grinders and moogers that are there, and it's like, that's not really, like, winding down their army much. Like, if maybe they had kept incorporating the moogers and grinders in their battle and just slowly destroyed each one, leaving Professor Cog by himself, that would have been a good plan, too.
Yeah.
But, like, they just stop.
Yeah, they just mildly confuse them for like a couple seconds, and that's it.
Yeah, they get each other, and then they just get up and they're like, "We got you," and it's like
April Fools,
April Fools, jerk. You know, so it doesn't actually provide them with any sort of advantage, and that's just like it bothers me because it's like so close to a good moment, but also not close at all.
Yeah.
Like, in the writer's room, they were close to a good idea, but somehow just didn't realize it. Like, they all danced around a really creative plan, but just never got there.
Yeah. Maybe one person actually knew what they were talking about, and then, like...
Nobody would listen.
Yeah, they just, like, in the back of the classroom or something. The back of the room. Just...
Like, we got this really small moment where Jaden recognizes Scott as a true ranger just because he's not willing to give up, but, like, that's not enough. In my opinion.
That's like every basic trait of a Power Ranger is that they never give up.
Exactly. Like, that's why some of them get their powers. It's just because they're determined.
If you find one Power Ranger that gives up all the time, take his stuff.
Like,
give it to someone else.
That's why they don't write them like that.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, like, it's just kind of a prerequisite to being a ranger. You just, if you're not determined, if you're not, you know, angry, then you probably won't get the job.
No.
So it just kind of falls flat to me. Like, and it's not really an actual bonding over, like, character traits or, like, even character differences, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I shouldn't expect a really meaningful conversation in Power Rangers, but again, RPM had these, you know, and we'll get into that if we ever decide to watch RPM for the channel. But it's just, I don't know, there's not really a whole lot of substance here. It's just kind of like a lot of mindless action with a really messy plotline.
Really messy.
Yeah.
But I don't like how they, like... Because, like, you need at least a couple scenes of, like, calm scenes, if you know what I mean? Like, no action, like, get, like, some dialogue in. But, like, the scenes they did use was Antonio sitting down. We know that Mia can't cook.
Right.
And Scott and Jaden talking...
Very briefly.
Very briefly.
And
I'm just like, this doesn't help me.
Yeah, and they're just somewhat angry. So, just, like... But yeah, so there really isn't, like, a whole lot of, like, you know, like, bonding or anything between Scott and this, in the Samurai team, you know?
Yeah.
And...
Well, Mike got a lot of it, apparently.
Apparently Scott and Mike just, like, really, you know...
They're best friends, man.
Yeah, apparently. Like, that moment could have been really good if they, you know, had some before, but I mean, like, I'd say the two main characters of this movie were Scott and Jaden, so, like, Mike really had almost nothing to do with anything throughout the whole movie.
Which was weird, too, because Mike seemed jealous at Scott at the beginning.
Right.
And then he came around on him for the reason that he helped destroy one of the monsters, which, again, they destroy they destroy at least one monster per episode, so I don't know why that's such a big deal.
Yeah, like, speaking of monsters, though, I think it's funny that, like, in some shots, they have these giant moogers in the army,
and
in some shots they're just, like, gone.
Yeah.
And, like, guys, that's not something you can just, like, gloss over.
Yeah.
Like, and it makes a lot of sense because all the giant mooger scenes are... specifically, like, all those shots are specifically Japanese shots. And all the ones without them are specifically American shots.
And it shows.
it really does show. Like,
yeah.
If they, like, honestly, I think it would have been better if they had just made it a mediocre crossover and kept the RPM Rangers in it and just hired different voice actors for them. How much were they going to say anyway? Like, Scott barely says anything in this movie and he's a main character.
Yeah.
So... I don't know. Like there could have just been this nice like handshake handoff moment at the end. You know, after the third act between the two teams, and I think that's really all you needed. Like, I feel like that would have been a better ending than like shoehorning in all this army stuff. And again, you can tell it's from a completely different movie. It just it has nothing to do with the main conflict
so
whatsoever.
Small too.
It really is. Like
it's like what 120 Uyghurs and like 5 big ones, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's not much of an army, but like whatever.
Yeah, it's a small one. There's actually 5 more waves of that. We just haven't paid.
These are just the infantry, like they're dumb for even Moogers, so
this
like
we're trainees.
Yeah, we've kind of been waiting to get rid of them. But overall, do you think this is the best Power Rangers movie we've watched out of the 3? Because like we gave it the best score, but like when I tell myself it's the best of the 3 we've watched, it doesn't feel quite right. But also, it's a TV movie. It doesn't have that Hollywood budget, and it didn't even have much to begin with, even those. So, like, it definitely has that more, like, traditional Power Rangers feel to it.
Yeah. I think it is better.
Yep.
But it's still not the best.
No, I completely agree with that. Like, when I was thinking about my score for this movie, I was like, it passes. It gets, like, the general things right.
Yeah.
But again, like I gave it a 61, so that's like a very low D. So like it's just barely passing.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I gave it a 70 because of the samurai and the RPM. Maybe mainly RPM because RPM is just really cool. But I would have felt bad if I gave it like a 50.
Yeah, I didn't feel it was quite deserving of a 50 because again, I think it got like the basic stuff right, like it has that, like I said, traditional Power Rangers feel to it, like you go into it basically knowing what to expect, and you basically just get that.
Yeah.
Whereas like the MMPR movie, was just like kind of all over the place, and like just didn't really have like much of anything in the character department either. I feel like honestly, this movie, at least just having a mild, like, rivalry between Jaden and Scott is at least something of character, not development, but like something of character interaction.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the MMPR movie, nobody really did anything. In the Turbo movie, nobody really, like talked to each other much.
Yeah.
So like I just. It has the basics.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's like the rough draft of the movie.
Yeah, like...
So we keep saying in these videos.
I know.
Just the rough draft, and that's about it.
I mean, like...
Well, like, they tried a little more. It's not like a rough draft. It's like a rough draft with, like, the teacher giving out ideas.
Yeah. Just fix a couple things, and it'll be tolerable.
Yeah.
But I think that's about all I have to say. You?
Yeah.
Alright, so thank you guys so much for watching the video, especially if you made it all the way to the end. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.